Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to use if statements, else statements, else elif statements, which are else if statements. Basically, just to check conditions and have conditional execution of code. So, anyways, let me just make another file. So I'm going to call this conditions.py. Open that with the text editor. Okay, so we can let's just say, okay, to check something, right? Let's say we want to check if 10 is less than 15. You just write if followed by the condition followed by a colon, and then you'll notice this is indented here with 4 spaces or 1 tab. Like any code you have after this will get executed. So we can say print 10 is less than 15, and then we can have another one, print, I don't know, print potato, and then we can say else followed by colon. You notice that this isn't indented, but these two are indented. If these two are indented, then they are part of the code block that gets executed if this 10 is less than 15 condition is true. You can use 10 less than 15, or less than or equal to 15, greater than or equal to 15, greater than 15, equal to 15 exactly, not equal to 15, etc. Well, yeah, those are all the operators you'll really need, but I'm just going to be checking if it's less than 15 up here. And now else, basically, if 10 is not less than 15, then we can say print 10 isn't less than 15, and then after that we can actually just print. Now this I'm not going to indent, and I'll say this will get printed no matter what. Basically, it's going to check this condition. If 10 is less than 15, it'll do this. It'll run these 2 lines over here. And otherwise, if 10 is not less than 15, it'll run this 1 indented block over here. And now, after that, this one's not indented. Well, it's 1 level back in terms of indentation, and therefore this one will get executed unconditionally. So yeah, make sure that's saved, and then let's run this terminal there, python conditions.py, and you can see 10 is less than 15, potato, this will get printed no matter what. So yeah, check there. If 10 is less than 15, this evaluates to true, and then after evaluating to true, it actually executes that print statement with 10 is less than 15 and prints out potato after that. And then afterwards the else doesn't get executed because it only happens if this were false. This would have, the statement here in the else block would only get executed, but since this is true, it just ignores the else statement, and then it continues over here because this isn't indented. So this gets executed, yeah, it prints, this will get printed no matter what. However, if I were to indent that, and well, now it's gonna say that it'll get printed no matter, well, it's not gonna get printed. So if I rerun that, now you can see that it just says 10 is less than 15 in potato. It doesn't have the this will get printed no matter what line, because this is now part of the else statement, which will only get executed if this were false. But I'll put that back, and yeah, so besides that, we can also it doesn't just have to be print statements in your in your if statement code blocks. You can have any code in there. You can even nest if statements, like let's say if 10 or let's say if 1 is greater than 2 and if 2 is less than 3. Actually wait, let me just say if 1 is less than 2 and if 2 is less than 3, then we can say print I don't know what to print let's just print 1 less than 2 less than 3, and then we can have an else in here as well inside of this one block, which is for the if 1 is less than 2. We can say print 1 is less than 2 but 2 is greater than 3, which doesn't make sense. That'll actually never happen, but anyways, so right now only if 1 is less than 2 then all of this code will get executed. Well, yeah, only this code will actually this code will be considered. So then it just looks at this part of the program now. So if 2 is less than 3, it'll print out that. Otherwise, it'll print out that. When I say that if 1 is less than 2, that it executes this, I don't mean it's going to actually necessarily print all of this or execute everything. And yeah, if there's more checks, it'll execute the checks, and then it'll keep on checking if there's more if statements and else statements or elif statements. I'll get to elif statements now. So this whole block of code over here, these few lines over here, they all happen if 1 is less than 2. And then if 1 is less than 2 and if 2 is less than 3, it'll print 1 is less than 2 is less than 3. Else it'll print 1 less 2 but 2 is greater than 3, which won't happen. And now in line with this if, we can say elif, which means else if in Python. Else if now let's do something with strings. If we can even compare characters, or no, we can even compare whole words based on sorting. So if ABC is less than BBC, so it'll compare them based on their alphabetical sorting. So ABC will obviously come before BBC if you compare the first letter of each at a time. So first off compare A to the B, and then immediately A is less than B, so it doesn't even bother to check the rest. But if for some reason they were equal, it would look at the next, see B is equal to B, and then C is equal to C. So this would be false if it were, well, if it were the exact same thing, it would be false. Or if it were D or E, then it would still be false. But since it's ABC, it counts as less than BBC, so you can also compare strings. And then yeah, we'll just print out, I don't know what to print out, let's just print out and then else will just, so if this is false, then it'll look at this, and if this is false, it'll just actually execute this. This will happen if all else fails, basically. Like if this is false, then it'll just look at this, right, and it'll compare these, and then, but this is going to be true, so this won't actually happen right now. And actually, let's run this just to show you. As it stands, this 10 is less than 15 will still it'll still execute these two lines, and then this else will get skipped, and then this will get printed no matter what, because it's not actually in a code block that that's not part of a conditional code block. And this, yeah, it'll execute this check. If 1 is less than 2, that's true. Now all of these that are indented one level, yeah, will be considered now in this block of code, yeah, and these two will not be considered at all now. These 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 lines here won't even be considered now. So now if 2 is less than 3, okay, that's true. Now only this will get executed, and then this else and this won't even get executed because this is true. And it'll just end up printing 1 is less than 2 is less than 3 after printing out this and this and this. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 lines getting printed out now. Save that, run it, and you can see 10 is less than 15, potato, this will get printed no matter what, and then we got that 1 is less than 2 is less than 3, and then the rest of them don't happen. But now let's just say we made this 1 is greater than 2. Now still these will remain the same, this will still get printed. However, this 1 is greater than 2, that evaluates to false, and now as a result this is definitely not going to happen. None of these will happen because this is false, so it immediately moves to the next else statement, or this is an elif, so it'll check if ABC is less than BBC. That's true. Now this else statement has no chance of being executed because of the fact that ABC is less than BBC if you look at it alphabetically. Now this is the only line that's going to happen. Print and now if we have any statements on here like x equals 3, this will actually be executed unconditionally because it's not part of any of the conditional blocks here. So we can say x is equal to 3, and then we can print x is plus string x, just to say what x is, and then actually no, let's actually move that to the top, right? So x is 3 initially, right? And now we can also add some other stuff here, like we can, if 1 is greater than 2, we can say x is equal to, I don't know, x is equal to 7. So if 1 is greater than 2, which won't happen, but anyways, assume it does, x equals 7, well, it'll override the value of 3 in x, and then yeah, that would happen. But now this isn't true, so x will remain 3. Let me just run that and show you. So 10 is less than 15, this will get printed no matter what, and then this 1 is not greater than 2, so all of this gets skipped. All of these blocks which are level, well, 1 level indented from here, all of these get skipped because this is false. Now elif, else if, checks this is true, so it prints and then it ignores this because this was true, because this only happens if this is false. And this also only happens, this check only happens if the previous one were false. So yeah, that's why we got it like that. And then as you can see, x is, and then x is 3, which is what the initial value was, so the x didn't get overridden. However, let's say we did this again. If 1 is less than 2, or let's say 1 less than or equal to 2, that's still false. Well, that's true. 1 is less than or equal to 2, so this will, the x equals 7 is guaranteed to happen, yeah, and this might happen, or this will happen because 2 is less than 3, and this is guaranteed not to happen because this is true, and therefore this else won't happen. So let's run that, and now we'll see. 10 is less than 15. Wait, 10. Yeah, 10 is less than 15. Potato. Then if 1 is less than or equal to 2, that's true. So x equals 7. At this point, it overrides x with 7, the value. And then, oh yeah, I skipped this will get printed no matter what before that. But anyways, so x gets overwritten with 7. It compares 2 to 3. 2 is less than 3, so this is true. Prints out the 1 is less than 2 is less than 3. And then after all of that, because this elif won't happen since this is true now, and neither will the else, because, well, that didn't even happen. Yeah, so all of this, yeah, gets skipped, basically. The elif itself gets skipped as well, because this was true. 1 is less than or equal to 2, which evaluates to true, basically. And then after that, unconditionally now, because there's no if or else or elif, and this isn't indented, so this is going to happen no matter what, and it'll say x is, and then it'll concatenate the current value of x, which is turned into a string over here with the string function str, which I went over in the last video. So yeah, that's fine. I'll print that. Yeah, x is equal to 7 now. You can see it's been overwritten there. And another thing you can do, you can actually say if true, print, I don't know, print lol. Like, yeah, so this, for true and false, you'll actually use an uppercase T and an uppercase F for that. And now this is just, it's guaranteed to happen, because if true, you can actually say true, because 1 less than or equal to, when it gets executed, it evaluates this first, the condition, and then essentially it just replaces it with a true or false. And yeah, so you'll see this right at the end there. That's going to happen. Now that's the basics of this. Now I want to add one more thing. You can also check if a condition is true and another condition is true, or you can check if a condition is not true, or you can check if a condition is true or another condition is true, and etc. So let's say, well, let's just keep this as it is for now, right? These are conditions. So I'm going to make a new file with let's see, I'm just going to call it more conditions.py. Open with Kate, and yeah. Okay, so we can do this. If, wait, let me zoom in actually. Yeah. If 1, or why do I keep using that example? Let's just do this. If I don't know, potato is not equal to an apple, right? So if potato is not equal to apple, which is true, and then we can actually say and now we can put another condition, and 5 is greater than 3. So that's another condition. So what happens here, it'll compare potato and apple. Clearly they are different, so not equal, potato not equals apple, that's actually true. And so, whoa, oops, okay, and then it checks this condition, 5 is greater than 3, that's also true. So essentially this is if true, this whole thing is true, and true, because 5 is greater than 3, and you should know that true and true will give you true. So print yes. So let's run that. Python more conditions, or more condition. More condition. Should be more conditions, but oh well. Who cares? You can see it's print yes. And so that you can actually use the AND statement like that. So let me just actually explain this here. So true and true is basically equal to true, because if this is true and this is true, then the whole thing is true. True and false is equal to false, because if one of them are false or both of them are false, it'll the whole thing is false. So false and false is equal to false as well. So for the AND operator, both the operands should be true for the whole thing to be true. And now we also have the OR operator. So we have true or false, and that will give you true. True requires at least one of the operands to be true in order for the whole thing to be true. And so, like, you could have false or true as well. Well, this is basically the same as the first one, so I'm not going to put it, like, the order doesn't actually matter with AND and OR. So, yeah, the only way you can actually have the whole thing is false is to have false or false. And where I mean true or false and false or false, like, I mean, like, these could be conditions that evaluate to either true or false. And then you have the AND keyword, like over here, this is basically a true and true, because 5 is greater than 3, which is this true over here, and potato is not equal to apple, that's another true. And then this whole thing, this whole statement here, and this, it's identical, or it's equivalent to having a true over here. And yeah, false or false is equal to false. And what am I missing? Oh yes, let me add one more. True or true is equal to true, because at least one of them is true. So if both of them are true, then obviously at least one of them is true. So you can do that. You can use OR and you can use AND. Another thing, AND actually has a greater, it's a precedence over OR. So you can say if 5 is greater than 3 and 1 is greater than 2, or A is equal to A. Okay, so let's explain what's going on here. If 5 is greater than 3, this is true, and 1 is greater than 2, and that's false. So basically, this AND over here, well, it's the same as having parentheses around this. By the way, you can actually force the order of things to happen in a specific way if you parenthesize. So if you want this and this to get evaluated as one thing before it actually evaluates with the OR, like 5 is greater than 3, it'll be true, and 1 is greater than 2, that's false. So true and false. This term here, if I can call it that, this is false. So if false, or now this over here, this actually is true. So if false or true, it'll print another yes. Okay, so you can see here that this is going to be true because A is equal to A. This OR over here actually makes the whole thing true, because the first part was false, but now the OR allows the second part to make the whole thing true, basically, because it lets either of them be true for the whole thing to be true. So let's run that, and you can see another yes. However, these parentheses are actually unnecessary because of the way Python evaluates this, where the terms surrounding the ANDs always get executed first before it actually does the OR. Like, it's not going to check 5 is greater than 3 and then and 1 is greater than 2, or A. Like, if this, it wouldn't compare 1 is greater than 2, it wouldn't check if 1 is greater than 2 or A on its own. It wouldn't do that. It would first look at the things around the ANDs, and then afterwards look at this whole thing as an OR, and then now also the equals takes precedence over OR as well, because it wouldn't really make sense to just check or A. Although, I guess that would evaluate to true if that were the case, but anyways. So if I just leave out those parentheses, the exact same thing will happen. There's implicit parentheses around this term here, and there's also implicit parentheses around this over here. So it's like if this condition or this condition. And put another there. So if I run that, exactly the same thing. Now, let's say we wanted to check this. So let's just put parentheses around this. We could do this as well. Right? We could force it to check if 5 is greater than 3 and all of this is true. So if 1 is greater than 2, this is false, or A is equal to A, true, right? So what happens here is this here is false, or A is equal to A, true. False or true will give you true. So this whole thing here will actually be true because of this or, and because one of them is true. This whole thing is true. So now we want 5 to be greater than 3 and true. So is 5 greater than 3? Yes, it is. So we have if true and true. So if true and true, that's true because both of them are true. Then it'll still print another yes. So if we run that again, yep, same thing. And I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this.